Welcome to the Block Time Podcast, powered by Riot Platforms. Today we got a special guest, Bobby Joe. Bobby Joe, our safety manager. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me today.
Now, this isn't the first time you've been on Riot Media. I know that you had an excellent interview with Gabes, so I'd encourage our listeners to go to YouTube and find that conversation there. But what brings you into the studio today?
So we actually came here to do something I've never done before. We're recording some voice alerts for our new systems that we have in the buildings for all of our fire hazards and things like that.
Awesome. So training, obviously, lots of overlap with safety.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So we've produced over 60 some odd operational procedures now. And so now in my training role, it'll be my job to get curriculums together to be able to train our people on these things now.
What were the voiceovers like that you were recording? What kind of events are we?
So we covered active shooter situations. We covered tornado watch, tornado drills, fire evacuations, things like that.
And then this will go over on the PA system in our Rockdale facility.
Yes, sir.
Is it loud enough to be in the air-cooled buildings? I know that those can be loud.
Yeah, so we've already looked into that and accommodated the monitors and the voice alerts being over the sound decibels of the actual miners going on.
Because then people have to wear earmuffs as well in that environment, right?
Yeah, it gets pretty loud in there. So on a day-to-day, it's probably about, I'd say 86 decibels in there. So time-weighted average of 8 hours, we require people to wear hearing protection inside the buildings. Makes
sense. But you haven't always been the training manager at Riot. I'm really interested in hearing about kind of your career progression when you joined the company. And
so I've been with Riot for 2 years now. Started out as a safety coordinator and then kind of molded into a safety manager. So I've been in that role for the last year or so. And just recently I got promoted, I guess, into the training manager position.
Got it. Okay, so you're the perfect person to ask this question because when I post a video and I'm wearing a hard hat and a yellow safety vest, the commenters on YouTube, they ridicule me. They're like, this is a Bitcoin mining facility. Why do you need a hard hat and a yellow safety vest? Please explain.
So at Riot, we have a safety culture that we're trying to build to protect our people, right? We want everyone to come to work and go home the same way. And so we kind of exceed some of the expectations for your typical data center by requiring steel-toe boots, the safety glasses, the vest, the hard hats, things like that. So there's a lot of hazards in that environment that people really don't think of. You know, whenever I first told people that I was a safety manager at a Bitcoin mining facility, I kind of got the same reaction. They're like, well, how hard can it be? Or what hazards do you have out there? So between the electricity that we have on site, you know, and just falling objects, things like that, there's a lot of hazards that, you know, people really don't think about that we have. And so I'm glad that we have the support in our organization to kind of go above and beyond and make sure everyone's protected.
And it's an active construction site as we're growing and building infrastructure during the bear market.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another factor, you know. So the construction side, we kind of fall into that more so to kind of make sure that it's even across the board, you know, not just one group or the others doing something above and beyond, if you will. So, it's just kind of keeping it blanket, make sure everybody's protected.
I didn't understand the steel-toed shoes until I picked up a Bitcoin miner, and I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. So
you don't want this falling in your
No, not at all. So they're, I think, like 20 to 30 pounds, right, each one of those. And so, I mean, if you're out there in tennis shoes and you drop one on, you can bet your toe's going to be bruised after that or not broken.
And you're racking thousands of them.
Yeah.
So it's a law of large numbers at some point at scale for an industrial type setup like we have.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. It's actually kind of funny. Whenever I first started, I come from a lignite coal mining facility. And so whenever they said we were mining Bitcoin, I was looking for the heavy equipment, digging up, you know, these golden chips, I guess.
Yeah.
So thanks to you, I kind of have a better picture of things like that. So yeah, it's people can be deceived to think that it's something that it's not, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating system. The mining metaphor, I feel like, is unfortunate in some regards. It kind of creates but it also helps it connect to kind of people's imagination of like a digital gold, right? Something that's hard to extract.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I'm curious, what you thought about Bitcoin going into this role.
So going into the role, whenever I started 2 years ago, still didn't have a clue about it. I just knew that we need to put some safety precautions in place and kind of move on from that. But as I've been here, I've kind of got a better understanding about it. Still don't fully understand, but that's what you're here for.
Yeah. Well, we've got more training coming up on Bitcoin. So when you were at the lignite coal mine, is that local to the Rockdale area?
Yeah, so it was actually in Elgin, Texas, and we supplied the lignite coal for the power plants there in Rockdale, which close to the Sandow switch that we're tied into. It was a 22-mile conveyor belt that we would put the crushed coal on and send it to the power plant for them to burn.
Wow. And now, when they closed that coal-fired power plant, the coal mine, did it immediately close as well, or was there work to be done to remediate the site and whatnot?
Yeah, so actually I have relatives that are still there right now, and they are 1 week shy of finishing all the reclamation work. And
Wow,
so it'll be shut
congratulations
down.
to them.
Yeah. So
well, I hope they will find a role for them.
I'm sure people my father-in-law is one of them, and so he's like looking for a mini vacation right now. He's been working shift work since '88 out there in the mine, so he's been operating a dozer for that long. So he's excited to have a career change and kind of get back to the family life. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting that, a lot of the roles that we have at Riot, we've hired folks that, as a consequence of Alcoa and Luminant closing down in Rockdale, it's kind of, it created a situation where Rockdale needed a new employer, and Riot has hired first dozens and hundreds of people.
Yeah, so I think that's the most amazing part of being a part of this organization is seeing now that we're getting a lot more of these local project managers, people that have been traveling for years doing jobs because there's nothing there in Rockdale, and now they can actually come home and be back in the part of the community and things like that. So it's kind of cool. It's really, really cool, actually.
It's an easy commute from downtown Rockdale to the facility.
It's like 12 minutes, 15 minutes from my house, so that's not bad at all.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I think that, when people talk about our electricity use, it's really, to me, instructive to look at the Luminant coal plant shutdown as kind of illustrating where we are in the energy transition, right? Which is that lignite coal does a great job of producing reliable electricity, and we need reliable electricity. But it also emits twice as much CO2 as natural gas.
Yeah.
And Texas has seen a transition from less and less coal to more and more natural gas and solar and wind, but mostly to more natural gas. And that has reduced the amount of air pollution. It has reduced the amount of greenhouse gases. And so I think that, like, when people talk about like Bitcoin mining on the Texas grid, it's not what it is. It's not the Texas grid of 1980.
Yeah.
It's the Texas grid of 2023, I think we're in.
Yeah. Not for long. We're almost there. But yeah, no, so that's the misconception I think is people get, and they think that it's so horrible and things like that. But I would much rather take someone who uses the power, yes, but actually supplies the power back in crisis situations versus the pollution that I'm raising my 2 kids in now, so healthier them, healthier me. So it is what it is. It's disappointing to lose a career like that, but at the same time, without that career and without that happening, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm thankful.
That's a great journey. And how do you feel like things have evolved since you've joined Riot 2 years ago? Like, what's I mean, how would you describe the evolution there?
So it's kind of I don't know. So like the evolution of Riot as a company, or like my lifestyle, or just the community in general. Like there's so many different scenarios I can.
So I mean, first I think like within your role, within Riot, and kind of the culture of safety and training.
So when I started 2 years ago, safety culture, they were doing things correctly, but we weren't exceeding them like we are today. And so to be able to come in and start from ground zero, basically, and build this safety culture and get the buy-in from all of the employees in the organization, having the support from our leadership, it's been kind of cool. Like I've never been with a company that kind of says, here's a blank canvas, fill in the blanks, and so it's been really rewarding. It's been, my wife enjoyed this. She says that this is the first company I've ever worked for. Don't come home and complain. So that's a plus. So I'm thankful for the opportunity, and it's been a journey, but we're keeping on striving. So
now I always tell my kids safety first.
Yeah.
But some people will accuse businesses of putting profits over safety. Whereas to me, it's like, if you want to maximize profits, you have to maximize safety, because lack of safety is very expensive.
Yeah.
Do you want to dig into why safety is important beyond just the human?
Beyond just the human factor of nobody wants to get hurt.
We love our neighbors. We want what's best for everyone.
Exactly. But as far as the organization goes, I mean, if you don't have any safety precautions in place, you don't wear the hard hats, you don't wear the steel-toed boots, whenever you have those incidents, I mean, workers' comp claims are not cheap, and so healthcare isn't cheap. And so when you have people going to the hospital constantly for incidents that could have easily been prevented had you trained them properly or given them the right tools for the job, it essentially cuts costs for the customers, or for the business, for the employees, and the customers too. I mean, I guess if you want to say that. Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged sword sometimes. People think that you're going overboard with safety, and why do I have to do this? But then once it clicks, they appreciate it and are thankful for the efforts that we put in at Riot.
Bobby, I got a question for you. Out there on our Rockdale facility, what is the most, frequent, thing that we need to be looking out for? Is it the heat? Is it falling items? Is it machinery? What is it that we're most concerned about out there?
So with our, we do leading, lagging indicators frequently, quarterly there at Rockdale site. Hand injuries, surprisingly, would be our biggest, contributor. Simply, it's human factor. Hey, I'm going to pick this up real fast without wearing my gloves. We provide the gloves, just wear them. We're not making you wear them just for looks, right? So that is where we have our biggest issues. And like I said, and that could be a heat factor also. People get fatigued and they're not thinking straight. So we have a really strict heat stress procedure, where we have water coolers that they're filling up. We have the electrolyte popsicles. We're actually planning to get a snow cone truck out pretty soon for them. So all of the things that you can do, the cool rags, all of that, to kind of alleviate some of that heat stress that eventually becomes fatigueness in the brain, to where you're just complacent with things and just trying to get by, right?
Yeah, and during the Texas summer, I mean, that's multiplied. A lot of folks who I know a lot of people played sports out in that weather, when they were younger. Yeah. So in some regards, we've adapted to it, but we still have to make sure that we have the right infrastructure in place for everyone.
Oh, yeah. I joke with my kid all the time. He plays travel ball, and I always tell him this is not the heat that I played in when I was a kid. And so I appreciate being on the sidelines, drinking cold water under a canopy, watching him play in this heat.
Yeah. Okay, so that's and then looking forward, are you playing it by ear? Do you have a roadmap of things that we want to evolve towards?
So now that I've kind of rolled into this training manager role, my goal is to take everything that we've kind of been evolving in the safety department, actually taking the time and retraining all employees, having site-specific things for contractors, for any and everyone that's going to come on site, blanket across the board. Everybody's communicating the same thing. So that way there's not a, well, he told me to do it this way or, type deal. So that's my goal. It's going to be a hectic ride, but I'm prepared for it. I love a good challenge, and so I'm ready for it. I think it'll be pretty successful in the end.
Awesome.
And Bobby, now that you're in the training manager role, I remember when I was a new employee and we had to go through our safety training. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like for new employees coming on, and are you still going to be doing that?
Yeah, so before we started, we didn't really have a orientation for new hire employees. So we built that out. It's now a 2-day orientation where it's kind of the first day is a welcome. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Go over your OSHA standards. What are your regulations that we have to follow? Day 2, we strictly talk about how to identify hazards in the workplace, how to mitigate those hazards. Looking forward, we're looking at moving this orientation to at least a week or 2 weeks, to where by the time a new hire comes on board and gets onto a crew, they will know everything in that department. So it helps the leadership, the supervisors, right? Whenever they come in, at least they have the grasp of what they need to be doing. And so it makes it a lot easier for the real hands-on training and stuff like that.
What are some of the more dangerous pieces of equipment on site?
So I would say they're underestimated, but our scissor lifts, which are in our day-to-day operations, they have walls that are 20 foot high. So scissor lifts can be a lot more dangerous than people make them out to be. Next would probably be like our rolling stock with our forklifts and scissor lifts, things like that. We just got these new electric pallet jacks in, and those things are they're pretty gnarly too. So we'll be doing a lot of training on those.
Okay, what's a pallet jack for our audience?
So
and for me?
so it's a normal manual pallet jack that you would stick underneath a pallet, and you click a lever and it'll jack it up to where you can move it to another location.
Okay.
Well, these are electric, totally automatic, and so you just press a button now instead of pushing or pulling. It'll help with strains and things from our employees, but they come with a lot of safety features on them, but they're still, if you're not trained properly, they could get out of hand real fast.
Got it. Yeah, I'm not surprised the scissor lifts are dangerous, though. I'm afraid of heights.
Yeah.
When I'm replacing the air filters in my house, I'm like, worried on the ladder.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's one of the key advantages of Immersion is that we can avoid using the scissor lifts and everybody can be on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Immersion buildings just because you eliminate those factors. You eliminate the reasoning of wearing hard hats because they're not above your head anymore. They're right there waist high.
There might be like a bird inside.
Yeah, maybe so. Or somebody throw something through the roof or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the hard hats they're there. I don't know if eventually we'll get away from it once we're absolutely done with construction, but until then, we're gonna keep protecting our people.
I released a video with me wearing my hard hat that has my name on it, and then there was a news article written about it, and they said unnamed man, and I'm like, my name's right on
literally
my
on the front.
That's okay though. But yeah, I'm sad to hear that we might get rid of the hard hats eventually.
Maybe.
But I'm only sad as somebody who likes the aesthetics. So I understand that working in it all day long might be a bit of a
Oh yeah. Well, I think I've been in several different organizations where you have to wear hard hats, and they kind of just become the norm. It's just like I wear a ball cap all the time, so what's another half ounce, right? So
Right.
I don't think they're as bad as people think they are.
And while we're talking about people wearing hard hats and steel toes and all that, I know there's people who have different personalities, and how hard was it for you, Bobby, to create that culture of getting people to really want to wear and understanding why they're wearing those hard hats and those safety equipment?
So my wife makes fun of me all the time. I am a true extrovert. I love talking to people and meeting people. I coach a lot of sports, and so that's how I tackle safety. Right? Is everything's a coaching moment. It's not a policeman type. I'm not here to beat you over the head and tell you what you're doing wrong. Why are you doing it wrong, and how can we get better from that situation? So that's how I got a lot of the buy-in and the trust from our organization, is simply just getting on the level of those people and understanding. I like to make things practical, right? There's no sense in doing a 45-minute pre-job before you do a 5-minute job, right? So being practical about those things, letting them be their ideas versus you just telling them what they need to do. That's what's helped me be successful in the role that I've been in. So,
And in the same breath, I know we're kind of changing subjects here on this one, but I think what helps you a lot, Bobby, because we work together and I've seen you a lot in person while you're doing your job. And I think one thing that helps you a lot is that you've been, a local for a long time. And a lot of our employees know you from outside of work, from, being in school or being within the community. You're very involved. Can you tell me a little bit about the Rockdale community and how working with your, community members has changed your job?
yeah, absolutely. So it is kind of cool to get to see. I mean, I've got relatives, I've got friends, I've got people I graduated with high school with that work there. So it's really,
Tigers.
yeah, Rockdale Tigers. Yeah. So it's really cool to kind of be able to be that person for them and being the advocate for them. And not only at work, but, whenever we're at school, I'm coaching, or out of work at the schools, I'm helping their kids with things. I'm helping coach their kids. I'm running an organization, the baseball organization for their kids. So I do make a lot of relationships outside of work that kind of just flow into work. So I think that makes it a lot easier with my role.
Yeah, you get to tell the kids to wear a helmet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and tie your shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Same
it's
job
fun.
all across.
Yeah, it's the same beat, just a different drum.
Did you have any other questions, Gabe?
I'm just thinking back here of all the things that we've covered, and maybe we want to go touch back a little bit on the community itself. How it's changed since the lignite mine shut down and Riot has come in. Bobby, how have you seen the community change?
So, we used to have Alcoa, which was a big advocate for the community, sponsored several different organizations, really, really, really helped out in the organization. Then, of course, Alcoa shut down, and then we brought in Luminate. Luminate was the same thing, right? That was the new sliced bread for everyone. Everybody wanted a piece, and so it was good. When it shut down, it was kind of a ghost town. I actually interested in moving away and starting up somewhere else, because you can't live where there's no jobs, and I don't really like driving, so I don't like commuting. But now that Riots came into factor, it's really, really made an impact. People are seeing that light at the end of the tunnel again, if you want. They're super active with the youth baseball organizations, our booster clubs, our high school sports. During COVID, everyone loved it because Riot had the footage of football games, so you could enjoy the high school football games from your living room. So they've done a lot of cool things for the community that, and it's not just throwing money at people, right? It's actually building those relationships. The Christmas tree lighting is everyone's favorite in town. The employees love getting the free Christmas trees. This is the first place that I've ever worked where they really really enjoy spending time with the people that work there. So it's rewarding. I love it.
And have you gotten to go up to Corsicana as well? You building the training and safety culture there?
Yeah, so haven't really been hands-on in Corsicana yet. I've been there. It was pretty cool to see the site before they started the groundbreaking. Yeah, that was really interesting to see before and now after. I'm sure once we get a lot more employees in there, I will be pretty hands-on with the orientation piece of everything, the onboarding. So yeah, I'm excited to get over there and see some different folks for a change.
And what about ESS Metron, Bobby? What involvement have you had with that?
So ESS Metron, I've collaborated with their quality and safety team for the last year or so, making trips out there just to see what improvements they can get, kind of being that extra morale booster to get that buy-in from the organization. It's been really, really cool going out there and just kind of seeing how a manufacturing facility works versus a mining facility versus a lignite coal. So it's kind of one of those I don't know, breath of fresh air, I guess, just seeing something different and seeing how all the pieces work together for us to be the organization we are.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. At this time, I want to ask Pierre if we have any sort of, in the news updates. What's going on in the Bitcoin space?
What's going on in the Bitcoin space? I think right now, people are obviously watching the price. It's down to $26,000, which, that's from $30,000. So I think that, at this part of the cycle, this is before the halving next year. It's to be expected that the Bitcoin price is going to be volatile. I mean, that's kind of what people criticize Bitcoin for all the time. But I don't think that the price going down in the short term is an indication that, this bear market's going to get worse. And, now people are like, we're going back to 17,000, which is where we were last year. Rather, I think it's just a correction from, we were at 17, then we went to 30. Now, obviously there's people taking profits or maybe, people who were leveraged long who need to close out those positions. And 26 is just fine.
Sounds good. What about some of the events that are going on this week? I don't know if this podcast will be published after this weekend, but are you going to be speaking at?
Yeah. So this week here in Austin, we've got BitBlock Boom. It's one of the biggest Bitcoin conferences in the world, and there's just lots of fantastic speakers that are going to be there. So I'm really honored to be among them. So it's going to be really cool to catch up with folks that I might not have seen in years in some cases, but who are like just old-time Bitcoiners. Shout out to Gary Leland for organizing the conference. I think that, as with local community, like the Bitcoin community, like needs events for people to meet each other and to get to know each other. And I'll be speaking there. I'll be speaking there about the grid here in Texas, ERCOT, and basically kind of I think there's an interesting question of how much Bitcoin mining does the grid need in order to have enough curtailment and powering off that we don't have these giant price spikes that go into like the thousands of dollars per megawatt. And so that because of the solar and wind factors, that's an interesting question of how much do we need to balance.
Yeah.
Do you have any last questions for Mr. Bobby Joe here?
No, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This was a really interesting conversation. Yeah. I'm going to stay away from the scissor lifts.
I'll take you up one day.
I'll keep my heart. Harness, like how many points of attachment do I get?
Yeah, just one.
Whoa, what? Okay, all right.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you having me on today. So
thanks. Yeah, hope to have you back on and talk more safety.
Sounds great.